The first thing I noticed was the silence, not the peaceful kind. The kind that makes your ears ring. The kind that tells you something is wrong before your mind catches up. I was standing in my kitchen, holding my phone in one hand and a damp dish towel in the other. The sink was still running, water spilling over a glass I had forgotten to move. I had been scrolling without thinking, just letting my thumb move. That was when I saw it. A photo. My son, in a suit, standing under white flowers, smiling in a way I had not seen since he was a teenager, and beside him, a woman in a wedding dress. For a moment, I honestly thought it was a joke, or a memory from someone else's life that the app had pushed into my feed by mistake. That happens sometimes. Old classmates, distant cousins, people you barely know getting married, having babies, moving on. But this wasn't that. This was my son. The caption read, "Best day of our lives." I read it again, slowly, then again. My hand started to shake. I turned off the sink without really knowing I was doing it. The water kept dripping from the tap, one heavy drop at a time, hitting the metal basin like a countdown. I checked the date. It was today, not last year. Not some private ceremony that happened quietly months ago. Today, my son had gotten married today, and I was not there. I stared at the screen until my eyes hurt. I waited for another post, a message, anything that explained this. Maybe I had missed a call. Maybe my phone had been off. Maybe there was a plan I didn't know about. I opened my messages. Nothing. No missed calls. No unread texts. I went to our chat. The last message from him was from 3 days ago. Just a short line. Busy week. Talk soon. Busy week. I sat down at the small kitchen table. The chair felt colder than usual. I pressed the phone to my chest, like that might slow my heart down. I told myself to breathe. There had to be a reason. I tried to think clearly, but my thoughts were loud and messy. My son was not the kind of person who forgot his own mother. He was thoughtful, careful. He always had been, hadn't he? I thought back to the last time we spoke on the phone. It had been quick. He sounded tired, distracted. I had asked if everything was okay. He said yes. He always said yes. I remembered asking him, half joking, when he planned to make things official with his girlfriend. He laughed and said, "Soon enough, Mom, soon enough." I looked back at the photo, zoomed in on his face. He looked happy, truly happy. That made something twist inside my chest in a way I couldn't explain. I was glad for him. I really was. But I was also outside of it, watching from a screen. Like a stranger, I stood up too fast and had to grab the edge of the table. My legs felt weak. I walked into the living room and looked at the empty couch. The same couch he used to sit on when he visited. The same spot where he would lean his head back and sigh, like he could finally relax. I tried calling him. It rang, and rang, then went to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I didn't know what to say. I tried again a few minutes later. Same thing. My phone buzzed. For half a second, hope rushed through me so fast it hurt. But it wasn't him. It was a message from someone I didn't recognize. A name I had never seen before. "Hi, I'm sorry to bother you. You don't know me, but I think we need to talk." I stared at the message. My fingers hovered over the screen. My heart was already racing again. I typed back, "Who is this?" The reply came quickly. "My name is Elaine. I was seated at your son's wedding today." I felt like the room tilted. I read it again, slowly, carefully, as if reading it the wrong way might make it less real. "You were at my son's wedding?" I typed. "Yes," she wrote. "I didn't realize you weren't there until later. Someone mentioned you, and things didn't add up." I sat back down. My mind felt foggy, like I was underwater. "What do you mean?" I asked. There was a pause this time, longer, long enough for my thoughts to start spiraling. Finally, another message appeared. "I'm not sure how to say this gently," she wrote, "but your son told people you had passed away." The words didn't make sense at first. They just sat there on the screen, flat and quiet. "Passed away." I read them out loud, barely above a whisper. "That's not possible," I typed. "I'm alive." "I know," she replied. "I know. That's why I'm writing to you." My hands were cold now. My whole body felt cold. I tried to stand again, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. I stayed where I was, staring at the phone like it might explain itself if I waited long enough. "He told his wife's family that his mother died years ago," Elaine continued. "There was even a small mention during the ceremony." A moment of silence. A moment of silence. for me. I pressed my free hand against my mouth. A sound came out that didn't feel like it belonged to me. Half laugh, half sob. Why would he do that? That question hit me harder than anything else. Not anger, not even the shock. Why? I had spent my whole life trying to be there for him, trying not to be a burden, trying not to ask for too much, and now apparently, I was something he had erased completely. I typed slowly, my vision blurring. Why are you telling me this? Another pause. Because it didn't feel right, she wrote. And because I lost my own mother. I know what real grief looks like. What he described. It didn't sound like that. It sounded practiced. Practiced. That word stayed with me. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to ask. My head was full of memories crashing into each other. Birthday cakes, school plays, late night talks when he couldn't sleep. The way he used to say my name when he needed comfort. I thought about the way he hugged me last time we saw each other. Quick, polite, like someone hugging a relative they didn't know. Well, had he already decided then? Elaine sent another message. I'm so sorry. I debated reaching out, but if it were me, I would want to know. I stared at the words until they blurred into shapes. Thank you, I typed back. It felt small and weak, but it was all I had. I put the phone down on the table and rested my forehead against the cool surface. My breathing was uneven. My chest felt tight. I tried to cry, but nothing came out. It was like my body didn't know which emotion to choose first. After a while, I picked up the phone again. I went back to the wedding photo. I looked at the comments now. Friends congratulating him. Family members from his wife's side welcoming him into their lives. Someone wrote, "Your mom would be so proud." I closed my eyes. I was proud. I still was, but pride didn't stop the ache. I wondered how long this lie had been alive. Weeks? Months? Years? How many times had he told the story of his dead mother? How many details had he invented? And why was it easier for him to say I was gone than to let me stand beside him? I thought about calling him again, demanding answers, telling him how deeply this hurt, but something held me back. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe it was the quiet realization that this wasn't a mistake. It was a choice made carefully, cleanly. I walked into my bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. The room looked the same as it always had, simple, familiar, safe. I thought about the years I spent raising him alone after his father left, about the jobs I took, the nights I stayed up worrying, the things I gave up so he could have more. I pushed those thoughts away. Not yet. I couldn't go there yet. Right now, all I knew was this. My son had stood in front of a room full of people. He had promised his life to someone else. And in order to do that, he had erased me, and a stranger had been the one to tell me. I looked at my phone again. Another message from Elaine had come through. If you want, she wrote, I can tell you more. About what was said, about who knew. I didn't answer right away. Outside, the sun was starting to set. The light coming through the window turned soft and orange. The day was ending. Whether I was ready or not, I realized then that this wasn't just about a wedding invitation I didn't receive. This was about something much deeper, something that had been building quietly. Without me noticing, I took a slow breath, and I typed back, yes, please. The next morning came too quietly. I woke up like I always did, before the alarm, before the world asked anything of me. For a few seconds, I didn't remember. Then it all rushed back at once. The photo, the messages. The word passed away sitting on my chest like a weight. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the refrigerator down the hall. Everything looked normal, too normal. That was the worst part. The world hadn't cracked open the way I felt inside. I got up and made coffee out of habit. My hands moved on their own. Scoop, pour, wait. The smell filled the kitchen, warm and familiar, and for a moment I almost felt comforted. Then I remembered I had no one to share it with anymore. Not in the way I thought I did. I sat at the table with my mug and opened my phone. Elaine had sent several messages overnight. I hadn't had the strength to read them then. I didn't want to overwhelm you, she wrote. But I think context matters. I took a breath and kept reading. She explained that she was a distant relative on the bride's side. Not close enough to be part of the planning, just close enough to be invited. She said the wedding had been small, but carefully arranged. Every detail controlled. He spoke during the reception, she wrote. Just briefly. He thanked his wife's parents. He thanked friends. And he said something about how he wished his mother could have seen this day. My fingers tightened around the phone. He said she raised him alone, that she worked herself sick to give him a future, that losing her taught him how fragile love is. Those were my stories, my life, my sacrifices, told as a eulogy. I set the phone down and stared at the wall. I felt exposed in a way I had never felt before, like someone had opened a drawer of my most private memories and laid them out for strangers. I had raised my son alone, yes, that part was true. His father left when he was 6. One day he was there, the next day his side of the closet was empty. I still remembered the sound of my son's footsteps that night, padding into my room, asking where Dad went. I told him the truth in the softest way I knew how. I said sometimes grown-ups leave, but love doesn't disappear. I said I would always be there, and I was. I worked 2 jobs for years. I cleaned offices at night and worked at a small insurance firm during the day. I learned how to live on very little. I learned how to stretch meals, how to fix things myself, how to pretend I wasn't tired when he needed help with homework. He was a good kid, quiet, observant. He liked reading. He liked building things with his hands. When money was tight, he never complained. When I apologized for not being able to afford something, he always said it was okay. I thought that meant he understood. Now I wasn't so sure. As he got older, I tried to give him space. I didn't want to be the kind of mother who clung too tightly. I wanted him to grow without guilt. So when he moved out for college, I cried in private and told him I was proud. When he met his girlfriend, he didn't tell me much at first. Just her name. That she was kind. That she had a close family. I could hear something shift in his voice when he talked about them. Like he was standing a little straighter. The first time I met her parents was uncomfortable in a way I couldn't quite explain. They were polite, smiling, curious in that careful way people get when they are measuring you. They asked what I did for work, where I lived, what my plans were now that my son was grown. I answered honestly. Maybe too honestly. I noticed how my son watched me during that dinner. How he jumped in to finish my sentences. How he steered the conversation away from certain topics. At the time, I told myself he was just nervous. Looking back, I wondered if he was already managing me. Over the years, visits became shorter. Calls became less frequent. He always had a reason. Busy job, busy life. You know how it is. I did know. Or at least, I thought I did. I learned not to ask too many questions. I learned not to show how much I missed him. I didn't want to be another obligation. I thought I was being respectful. Elaine's messages kept coming. He told people you died from an illness, she wrote. A long one. That it happened before he met his wife, before he met her. That part made it clear this wasn't a last-minute decision. This lie had been planted early, grown carefully, protected. I thought about how he introduced me to his wife years ago. How he never called me mom in front of her. Always used my name. How she looked surprised when I hugged him goodbye. I had felt that distance then. I just didn't understand it. Daily life for me had been simple. Quiet, work, groceries, the occasional lunch with a friend. Holidays spent mostly alone, unless he visited. I told myself this was normal. This was what letting go looked like. I decorated my apartment modestly. Photos of him as a child. School pictures. A graduation photo framed on the shelf. I talked to him in my head sometimes. Told him about my day. About the small things I never imagined. He was telling the world I didn't exist anymore. The hardest part wasn't the wedding. It was the realization that I had been slowly removed from his life without being told. I scrolled through old messages, read them with new eyes. The way he delayed responding. The way he avoided details. The way he always visited alone, never bringing his wife. After the first year, I wondered what she knew. Did she believe he was an orphan? Did she ever question it? Or did she accept the story because it made things easier? Elaine answered that too. I don't think his wife knows the truth, she wrote. She spoke about honoring your memory, about wishing she could have met you. That broke something open in me. A woman I had never met was grieving me, loving a version of me that didn't exist. While the real me sat alone in a quiet apartment, drinking coffee that had gone cold, I went to work that day like nothing had happened. Smiled at coworkers, answered emails, did my job. No one knew my son had buried me alive. That night, I sat on my couch and stared at the dark TV screen. I thought about all the moments I missed. Engagement photos, dress shopping, planning conversations. I wondered if he ever felt guilty, or if relief was stronger. Elaine sent one last message before going quiet. "I'm here if you need anything," she wrote. "Even if it's just someone to listen." I didn't reply right away. I needed time to understand how my life had turned into a story someone else told, and I needed to decide what to do next. The days that followed felt heavier than the ones before. Nothing dramatic happened on the outside. No shouting, no doors slammed, no confrontations. Just a slow tightening inside me, like something was being pulled smaller and smaller, trying to disappear. I kept going to work. I kept buying groceries. I kept answering polite questions with polite answers. But everything felt off balance, like I was walking on a floor that had shifted slightly to the left. I didn't call my son, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know who I would reach if I did. The man who used to call me when his car made a strange noise. Or the man who told a room full of strangers that I was dead. A night, I replayed conversations from the past, looking for signs. Moments where I could have stopped this, asked harder questions, refused to step back so quietly. I remembered a time years ago when he told me he was embarrassed that I still lived in a small apartment. He didn't say it directly. He said it sideways, joking, but I felt it. I laughed it off, told him I liked my place, that it was enough for me. Maybe that was the moment I taught him I was something to hide. That thought stayed with me longer than I wanted it to. Elaine and I began to talk more. Short messages at first, then longer ones. She never pushed, never asked questions that felt sharp. She just listened. She told me how she noticed the lie. She asked about you, Elaine wrote one evening. His wife, I mean. She asked how long you had been gone. He froze for half a second, just half, then answered like he'd rehearsed it. That half second mattered to me. It meant there was still something human left in him, something that hesitated, but hesitation didn't change the outcome. I asked Elaine what people said about me. It felt strange, asking about my own memory while I was still alive. She said they spoke kindly, with sympathy, with that careful respect people use when they think they are talking about someone who can no longer hear. She said she wished you could have been there, Elaine wrote. She said she hoped you knew how much he loved you. I sat with that sentence for a long time. Hope you knew. I didn't know, and neither did she. That's when the pressure started to build. Not anger yet. Something quieter, heavier. A sense that I was being pressed into a smaller space, expected to stay there. I realized my silence was part of the lie. Now, every day I didn't speak up. The story stayed clean, untouched. I started to notice how often I had made myself easier for others. How often I chose quiet over discomfort. How often I told myself love meant understanding, even when understanding hurt. I wondered if my son had learned that from me. One afternoon, I finally tried calling him again. He answered this time. "Hey mom," he said. His voice sounded normal, too normal. "Hi," I said. My throat felt tight. "How are you?" "Good, busy, you know." I waited. He didn't say anything else. I saw some pictures, I said carefully. There was a pause. Longer than half a second this time. "Oh," he said. "Yeah, that was quite a surprise," I added. Another pause. "I was going to tell you," he said. I closed my eyes. "When?" I asked. "Soon," he said. Things just got complicated. Complicated. He didn't apologize. Not really. He talked around it. About timing. About stress. About how hard weddings are. He didn't say the words that mattered. I didn't confront him then. I didn't mention the lie. I listened. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. When the call ended, I felt smaller than before. That was when I understood the control wasn't loud. It was gentle, polite, wrapped in excuses that made me doubt my right to be upset. I began to feel like a problem he was managing, and I was tired of being managed. Type. Continue part 4. Continue part 4. I didn't sleep the night after that call. Not because I was angry. Anger would have been easier. Anger moves. It burns. What I felt was heavier. Like sitting under something too large to push away. By morning, I knew one thing for certain. If I stayed quiet, this would never change. The lie had worked too well. It had given my son a clean life, a story without complications, and I had been placed neatly outside of it. I called Elaine. We spoke for the first time, voice to voice. Hearing her made everything feel more real. She sounded calm, steady, the kind of person who didn't dramatize things. I don't want to ruin his marriage, I told her. I don't want to embarrass him, I know, she said. But you also don't deserve to be erased. That word again, erased. She told me something she hadn't mentioned before. Something small but sharp. She asked if there were any old photos of you, Elaine said. His wife. She wanted to put one on a table with candles. He said there weren't any. I let out a quiet breath. My apartment was full of photos, Elaine continued. That's when I knew it wasn't just distance. It was intentional, intentional. That was the moment something inside me settled. Not hardened, just cleared. I wasn't dealing with a misunderstanding. I was dealing with a choice that had been repeated over and over. Elaine asked if I wanted to see something. I have the program from the wedding, she said. There's a paragraph about you. I said yes, when the photo came through. I stared at it for a long time before reading. In loving memory of his mother, who shaped the man he is today. No name, just a memory. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I felt strangely calm, because now I had proof, not just of the lie, but of how carefully it had been built. Elaine told me she had also spoken to someone else. An older aunt on the bride's side. A woman who kept everything. She questioned it too, Elaine said. She remembers dates, stories. She said some of it didn't line up. That mattered more than anything. It meant I wasn't imagining this. I wasn't being dramatic. Other people felt the cracks too. I asked Elaine what would happen if the truth came out. She didn't answer right away. Things would change, she said finally. But they already should have. That night, I wrote my son a message. I didn't accuse. I didn't beg. I told him I knew. I told him I had spoken to someone who attended the wedding. I told him I knew what he had said about me. I ended with one sentence. I am alive. And I deserve to be treated that way. He didn't reply for hours. When he finally did, it was short. Please don't do this. Those words did something unexpected. They didn't scare me. They clarified everything. I asked him to meet me in person. He said he needed time. That things were delicate. That his wife didn't know. I told him that was exactly the problem. 2 days later, he came to my apartment. He looked smaller than I remembered. Tired. Older. We sat across from each other at the same table where I had raised him on homework and late-night talks for a long time. Neither of us spoke. Then he said, I didn't know how to explain you. Explain me. I asked him what he meant. He talked about image, about expectations, about how his wife's family saw things differently, about how my life didn't fit into the story he was trying to tell. He said he thought it would be easier if I wasn't part of it. Easier. I listened. I didn't interrupt. When he finished, I told him something I had never said out loud before. I spent my life trying not to make things hard for you. His eyes dropped. I worked extra shifts so you wouldn't worry. I stayed quiet so you could feel proud. And you learned that my silence meant I didn't matter. He tried to speak. I raised my hand. This isn't about the wedding, I said. It's about the fact that you practiced my death. That's when he cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly. Like a child who had been holding something too long. He said he didn't know how to fix it. I told him the truth didn't need fixing. It needed telling. I gave him a choice. He could tell his wife himself. Or I would. I wasn't threatening. I was stating a boundary. He chose to tell her. Elaine called me the next day. She knows, she said. She's shocked, hurt, confused. But she asked about you. She wants to meet you. That surprised me. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. But also, real again. I took my time before answering, not because I didn't know what to say, but because for the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to decide at my own pace. Elaine said my son's wife wanted to meet me. Not immediately, not dramatically, just, honestly. She said she needs to understand, Elaine told me. And she said she's sorry for believing a story that made you disappear. That mattered, not as forgiveness, but as recognition. I told Elaine I would meet her, but not yet. I needed space. Space to let my own body catch up with everything my mind had already been through. For a few days, I did very little. I took walks. I cooked simple meals. I slept more than usual. I let the quiet settle without trying to fix it. My son called once. I let it go to voicemail. He texted after. I'm not asking you to protect me anymore, he wrote. I just want a chance to be honest. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I wrote back. Honesty isn't something you ask for after the damage. It's something you practice before. He didn't reply, and for once, that didn't hurt. When we finally met again, it was in a small cafe halfway between our homes. Neutral ground. No history in the walls. His wife was already there when I arrived. She stood up the moment she saw me. Not out of guilt. Out of instinct. She looked nervous. Her hands were folded too tightly. Her eyes kept searching my face like she was trying to line me up with a ghost. "I'm so sorry," she said right away. "I don't even know where to start." "You don't have to start anywhere," I said. "You didn't create this." She swallowed hard. "I talked about you like you were gone," she said. "I mourned you. I thought I was honoring you." "I know," I said. "That's not your fault." She nodded, tears forming but not falling. My son sat quietly between us, smaller again, like he knew this space wasn't his to control. We talked for a long time, not about blame, about truth. She asked about my life. I answered simply. No defending, no shrinking, just facts. I watched her face change as the real picture formed. Not dramatic, just subtle shifts. The way people adjust when they realize they were missing a whole chapter. At one point she said, "I wish I had known you." I believed her. That was enough. I didn't walk away with a repaired relationship that day. That wasn't realistic. What I walked away with was something quieter. Dignity. My son walked me to my car afterward. He looked unsure of where to stand, what to say. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said. "I know," I answered, "but I want to be better," he added. I looked at him. Really looked. "Being better doesn't start with promises," I said. "It starts with telling the truth even when it costs you." He nodded. We didn't hug. That was okay. Weeks passed. Life slowly found a new rhythm. One that didn't revolve around waiting, or hoping, or making myself smaller. My son called more often. Sometimes I answered. Sometimes I didn't. I stopped measuring love by consistency alone. His wife sent me a letter. Handwritten. Thoughtful. No excuses. Just openness. I kept it. We met again later. Just the two of us. It was awkward, honest, human. She didn't try to replace the story she had believed. She let it break. That mattered. People say justice is loud, that it needs raised voices and public scenes, but the justice I felt was quiet. It was the feeling of no longer being hidden, of being spoken, of in the present tense, of knowing that even if things never fully healed, the lie was over. I still live in the same apartment, still drink my coffee alone most mornings, but I sit straighter now. I don't apologize for my life, and when someone asks about my son, I say his name without hesitation. I exist, and that is enough.